You know what they say? I always come back. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 has officially released to the public, and we're gonna talk about it today because it seems like critics don't really like it. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 from director Emma Tammy and studio Blumhouse, once again following Josh Hutcherson and Piper Rubio's characters as new animatronics take over the town, revealing more and more backstory of all the horrific history of the Afton family and the Fazbear Entertainment franchise. Now, I'm going at this movie from two perspectives. I want to talk about it both as a fan of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, but also as a film critic. At the end of the day, these are all opinions. So take mine with a grain of salt and go see the film for yourself. Let's start with the critic rating. If I were to give this film a rating on a scale of 5, pulling out the classic 5-star system, I would probably give this film 2 stars max, just as a film critic. Because, yeah, it's really not some strong feat of filmmaking, but it's a good time. I think it has a lot of glaring issues. That being said, it does fix a lot of the issues critics had with the first film, which is why I find the reactions to this one so weird. One of the things I noticed back in 2023 when the first film came out is people were like, oh, there's not enough replication of the gameplay from the game. Well, FNAF 2 replicates the gameplay so much more. You even see it in the trailer. Yet that was a complaint for a lot of people. You really can't make the critics happy. But you know who you can make happy? The fans. And as a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, I absolutely loved this movie. Again, I think the Rotten Tomatoes score is way too low. The audience score is more in line with what I thought it was going to be. Not in terms of critics, but in terms of audience. I really did think critics, though, were going to give this movie about a 50. And I don't think it deserves a 15. But back to the fan perspective. This fixed everything I wanted fixed from the first film. My main complaints in the first film were the script, the lack of horror, and not seeing the animatronics as much as I wish we could. And in this movie, they fix all that. I do think the script is stronger than the first one. Not by a substantial margin, but I think it tells a FNAF story in a better way. Whether it be the dialogue, the humor, whatever's injected into this, I think it works a lot better. The one problem with the script, which is a new problem compared to the last film, is the pacing. The pacing is terrible. This film's about an hour 44, and yet it still feels like it's rushing every single plot point. Everything feels underdeveloped. It feels like we get a sequence that's really cool, and it's gone within a minute. It's a film almost made for the TikTok generation, which I know is something that gets thrown around a lot, but I do feel like this is one of those that falls into that category. And I think it ultimately hinders it because my biggest complaint with this film is the final act. Not because it's not awesome, but because it goes too quick and they don't spend enough time with the ideas they're trying to put out there. The biggest sin of this film is that it has a lot of ideas but doesn't exactly know how it wants to execute them. Now, what I mean by that is it'll take this idea and then it goes in multiple different directions rather than picking one and sticking to it. And that's a big issue throughout this film that I didn't feel was in the first one, which is why I think for me, I like this film a little less than the last one, not a whole lot. They're about the same in quality. In terms of the horror, this film is a lot scarier this time around. It's still a kids movie at the end of the day, but I think this is a better entry into kids horror than the first one was. Especially some of these deaths, they're pretty gruesome in this movie. Things that I didn't think you would show in a PG-13 movie. And I know a lot of people on Twitter are like, what do you mean it's gruesome? But guys, you gotta keep in mind, this is a PG-13 movie. Some of the things happening in this movie usually just happen off screen. And it still is kind of off screen in this film, but they do little tricks to have it on screen. Like, for example, you see it through a camera. The animatronics are on full display this time. I personally feel like each and every one got more than enough screen time, and I was happy with it, especially when the concept for this film is animatronics taking over the town. I think they did a really good job at it and show the animatronics in their full glory. On top of that, the designs in this movie are arguably better than the first. The first were not bad by any means, but the second movie nails the toy animatronics so perfectly, and I even really like the withered animatronics, although a lot of fans have been complaining about it so far. These performances aren't necessarily the best any of these actors have ever given, but I think they're better and stronger than the first film. I think they understand their characters a bit more. The standout, though, are the 3 toy animatronics that talk. You have Helen Goff as Toy Freddy, Matthew Matt Pat Patrick as Toy Bonnie, and Megan Fox as Toy Chica. And when I tell you Megan Fox as Toy Chica is one of the best castings of all time, I'm not lying. She nails this character to a T. What's impressive about these 3 voice actors is that all 3 of these characters really don't have a personality in the game outside of how they look. I think these are some of the more underdeveloped animatronics in the franchise, and so to see these performers bring them to life, it was really cool because it feels like they understood personalities that were previously non-existent but were kind of just understood based off the visuals of these characters. And for that, I want to commend them because I think they're all the shining star of this film. Everyone else gives a good performance as well. Matthew Lillard's back on full display as William Afton, and we're actually seeing him a lot crazier in this film than in the first one. And now we also have Skeet Ulrich, which he's playing very clearly Henry in this film. Like, the trailers gave it away, everyone talking about it gave it away, like, people already knew, which is what I think is the biggest thing hindering this film and creating a separation between general audiences and fans of the franchise. This film is a fan film. It assumes you know everything there is to know about the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. And for that, I think it loses general audiences. I had people in my theater questioning what was happening while it was happening. There was one sequence at the end of the film where everything starts making sense, and the people to my left looked so incredibly confused that I could tell they were just here because they liked the first one. And while I think it's amazing that they're catering to the fans with these films now, I do think you're going to lose out on a lot of new fans as well. What I felt the first film did so well is introducing people to the universe of Five Nights at Freddy's and getting you in on what kind of lore we experience. Because let's be real here, we all love Scott, we all love what he's created, but his lore is so convoluted that when it's exposed to a critical lens, it all collapses. And if you're a fan of the franchise, that's all you need for this film to be good. And so that's why I feel like the whole critic score thing is a little lame. Because most of these critics, when I went and read their reviews, have no clue about this franchise. And so they're like, this isn't good horror for kids. This is an awful movie. But then I see me and a bunch of other fans and a bunch of kids over the moon excited and only talking about Freddy Fazbear for the next couple weeks. I will say they shouldn't have released this film in December. I think you lose out on a large market when you don't have kids going back to their schools to talk about it, because they go on holiday soon. And when they go on holiday, they won't be talking to their friends about Five Nights at Freddy's. So I do think this movie should have come out a little earlier, but that's not even something that you can knock against the film as a whole. I think this movie does a really good job with the lore, though. There were some surprises in here that I didn't even expect to come out of the second movie, and the two end credit scenes, which make sure to stay for both, there's two, really hype me up for the third movie. And you can tell that this third movie is going to be the final piece of this story. They really are going to end it on a trilogy. Now, will they probably make more movies, maybe make more shows? Yes, but in terms of this trilogy arc, it's very clear that's the direction they're going, which is another thing I hold against this movie. This movie feels so much like the middle part of a trilogy that it's painful. And this happens with all trilogies everywhere. The only trilogy I can think of in this moment that has a flawless middle part is Star Wars number 5. Like that, and that came out in 1980. That's a long time ago. Empire Strikes Back is the only middle chapter that I can think of in this moment that is absolutely solid all the way through and stands as its own movie. But again, that kind of all feeds into my issues with the pacing. But overall, I left the theater the same way I did in 2023. Really happy with the movie I saw. I'm a huge Five Nights at Freddy's fan. I wouldn't be doing YouTube as a career if Five Nights at Freddy's doesn't exist, so excuse me for being a little bit biased, but I'm always gonna love this franchise, and as long as these films keep delivering what fans want, I'm always gonna have a good time. So as I said, if I were rating this critically, I'd give it about 2 stars, maybe even 1.5. And if I'm rating this as a fan, I'm giving it 3, maybe 3.5 on rewatch. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the first film, but as of now, I definitely still like the first film more than the second one, but they're very close in quality and not much different from each other. Let me know what you thought about the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie down below, and tell me what you hope for Five Nights at Freddy's 3. I'd be really interested to see your theories and things like that, because there's a lot of things even in this movie that I didn't fully understand the lore of, and I'm a big Five Nights at Freddy's fan. But yeah, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!